Yeah, I didn't go about looking systematically for these kinds of correlations between industry and country of origin and success, but it's hard not to see certain patterns. So one generic pattern, whether it's Indian or multinational, is the closer to you are to being a consumer business, the more fun it is, because India is a consumption-driven economy, okay, and the hand of government is not very significant. So FMCG, food, all these consumer durables, these are very much easier businesses. Then you go to the industrial business, the B2B type businesses, and that's not too bad. The closer you are to either selling to government or where the role of government is large from a point of view of regulation, think for instance retail or telecom, or else the government is controlling access to natural resources, mining, infrastructure, etc., defense. These are really, really hard for every company, but for multinationals, it's a particularly steep haul. So that's one slice of it. I also saw certain differences. I found that consumer companies tend to understand that their success lies in becoming more local. And so they localize much faster. They find a better balance between what one manager called mindlessly global versus helplessly local. They find a good balance. High technology companies tend to be the least global in their orientation. They largely tend to think that the sun rises and sets in their headquarters. All smart people must be working here. And they expect that their country organizations are mere selling organizations. And I think that will sooner or later land most of them in trouble. So those kinds of patterns are there in terms of industries. In terms of country of origin too, there's some striking differences. The most striking are the Koreans. The LGs, Samsung, Hyundais. They jumped in early. They stayed tenaciously investing, whether it was a boom time or bust time. Even now, they're absolutely not holding back, even though it's a challenging time to be in India. And they've been rewarded by extraordinary success and leadership. At the other end of the spectrum, the Japanese companies seem to be the most cautious and risk-averse. Many Japanese companies, including Toyota and Mitsubishi and all, came into India in the 70s, but they left every time the water got a little turbulent. And so Sony, Panasonic were in India long before LG, Samsung and their Korean friends. But today, the market shares tell all the story. And that's because the Japanese were very, very cautious. They said, we're not sure, let's see, and so forth. And the Koreans just ran away with the business. You see American companies here in large numbers, but they largely see India as a talent pool. So they do IT outsourcing and they do engineering work, but they're still a little reluctant to jump into the market. And although there's some great success stories like Cummins, like Deere, and more recently GE and so forth, but there are many more which have hit the midway trap. And that's because American firms are very short-term oriented, very quarterly focused. In contrast, I find the Europeans, particularly the French, Scandinavians, the Germans, much more willing to take a long-term look and make those 5-year horizon investments. One thing the Europeans do tend to do, though, is trust only each other. So French companies are invariably led by French men, and Germans like to send Germans who they can trust, and so forth. And that works for a while. Hopefully they realize the importance of localizing management.